Just got back from the swap meet, which a lot of you call a flea market. Got a gigantic haul that I consider the best swap meet haul I've ever had in my life. Let's go through what I got. I'm going to go through all the stuff that I paid for first. That isn't books, because most of this is going to be books, and then we'll talk about the books. Here's 2 shirts. This is a vintage Wrangler Aztec Southwestern Geometric Pearl Snap Western shirt, purple, size large. Is it made in the USA? Nope, it's made in Honduras, doesn't matter. That is worth probably around 30, 40 bucks. And I got it for $5. Got this one from the same person for $2. That is Basquiat, who is a famous French artist from the 90s who has just grown in popularity. Basquiat, Andy Warhol, and Keith Haring, I would say, are the triumvirate of artists that people who shop at Urban Outfitters really love. And this could be worth like $100. This is from 11 Paris, and there was no comp for this specific one, but there were a bunch of comps from 11 Paris X Basquiat for like 75. This is the first thing that I found from this same vendor that sold me the shirts. It's a pair of Chukka work boots, is what I would call them. Maybe there's a more proper title. They're from 511 Tactical. I didn't even know that they made shoes. If you can see the brand in there. I'm used to buying their shirts and pants, which I've talked about on the channel before, but these are in like new condition and are selling for 50, 60, 70 used. And I got them for 15. Oh, they are new. Look, they still have the plastic tag on them. Don't have the actual labels, but these are new. So I'm going to sell them as new, assuming that there are no cosmetic flaws with them. Yeah, so I got these for 15. She wanted 20. I offered 15. She said yes. She was really sweet. And she was getting yelled at by some lady for some reason, so I was just nice to her, and she gave me some good deals and stuff. This, if it is real, is probably worth around 100. It is an Orvis bag, canvas and leather, that I realized right after I paid for it might actually be counterfeit. I don't know if they counterfeit Orvis stuff, but that just doesn't look quite right to me. It was 10 bucks, so if it is fake, who cares? And plus, this is the kind of thing I might actually just keep to use for myself if I don't end up selling it. Also got these for 10 each. These are purses, which definitely way out of my wheelhouse. The brand is Dooney and Burke, which I've heard people talk about before, I think. I just did some really quick research on eBay, and the numbers tell a good story, so took a little bit of a risk on these. This is Ostrich Leather, which I talked about in the fabrics video. You can tell because it's got those giant feather pores, and that's genuine leather too. So this is probably worth a little bit more than this, but this is genuine leather trim as well. If all goes according to plan, these will probably flip for 30 or 40 bucks, and these seem to be in pretty high demand. I bought this for $5. It's going to be a gift for a friend of mine who's picking up bird watching. But this is actually a good one to know. These Sibley's birding guides. These are the best bird watching field identification guides. These are really, really popular. I've had one since college that I just absolutely love because I am a high octane bird watcher. So if you find these ever, they're in such high demand, this is a guaranteed like $5, $10 of profit if you ever run into one. They have Western ones, Eastern ones. They have a bigger omnibus version. That's the whole United States. Then there's related stuff that David Sibley, this author, has written. He's an author / artist. He does all the paintings. You don't need this much detail about the birdwatching book that you don't care about. I got some DVDs, which is actually like pretty good money. They're still popular enough. I got this for 50 cents. This is 2001: A Space Odyssey on HD DVD. That should sell for around 15. This one I got for 50 cents as well. This is astonishingly valuable. This is the infamous series from the 80s, right? Buns of Steel, most famously, but this is worth like 40, 50 bucks based on the solds and the actives. Hopefully, fingers crossed. Definitely worth picking up for 50 cents. I was shocked by that. Here's a 3 DVD box set about the Civil War that's worth around 15. And got that one for $1, got this one for $1. It's season 2 of a British TV show. This is probably worth around, I don't know, 10 to 15 as well. That's all the stuff that I got from the vendors at large. And then I ran into this one vendor who had this big plot in the back of the swap meet, and it was the end of the day on a Sunday, and he clearly just wanted to get rid of a bunch of stuff. And he had all these tarps laid out with books laid out side by side on the tarps. And when I got there, he was flipping them for $2 each. And I kind of was just looking for myself because I like to get old sci-fi books. This is one of the things that I've found myself becoming a hobbyist in as I drift my way towards middle age. I have gotten really interested in collecting old sci-fi books, especially old sci-fi books from good authors that have good cover art on them or that are really rare. So I love to hunt and peck for that stuff at thrift stores when I can find it, just for fun. So I was kind of poking around for myself, and I kept finding book after book after book, and it just kind of dawned on me that I had stumbled into a potential gold mine. And I had woken up in like this bad mood. I didn't want to go to the swap meet. I didn't want to be a reseller today. I didn't want to be getting jostled around by a bunch of people with their masks down below their noses. I didn't want to be there in the hot sun scavenging. But I made myself go anyway. As soon as I got the flesh in my teeth of the good deal, I was on fire. My brain just lit up. And that's one of the wonderful things about doing reselling, is that it's so intensely pleasurable and engaging when you hit a gold mine, a vein of pure vintage gold like I did. So let me show you this box. That's the really good stuff. And then I'll show you some of the other stuff that I got. We won't go through every single book because I got a lot of them. Here's some I got for either $1 or $2 or 50 cents because he kept dropping the price progressively as time got closer and closer to close. And he was kind of squirrely and weird. He would make me pay incrementally as I shopped because he didn't trust me to, I don't know what his deal was. But anyway, Will Durant, this is a classic, the story of history, the story of philosophy. I think this is a first edition. This is, nope, the 12th printing, but it's hardcover and it's in pretty good shape. This, along with Bertrand Russell's History of Western Philosophy, are like the two great beginner guides, classic books. Here's one that I don't know how much is worth. It's edited by Joseph Campbell, which is notable. And it's got this great dust jacket. And I think it's got to be a first edition. Maybe not. No, it's published in 1951. That's got to be a first edition. I'm not sure. Don't know how much this is worth. I'm actually going to look this up. I'm going to look a few of these up live because some of them I just bought on a whim. So it's the Astounding science fiction anthology, not astonishing, and it's worth about $25. I love Joseph Campbell. His story, Who Goes There, which is what the movie The Thing is based on, is the story that made me fall in love with science fiction in the first place. So this is one I'm probably going to keep for myself. Just because you don't find... oh, it's John Campbell. I wonder if it's the same guy. I'm getting them mixed up. Anyway, this is so cool. I'm probably just going to end up reading it myself. Here's another one that I'm going to look up. I could not believe that I found this. This is a very famous book that I think is from the 30s. It's one of the first popular speculative fiction books. I think it's technically science fiction. It's set in the future, and it's a guy's narrative of looking back on the past and filling in all the gaps in history. I don't know when it was written. Wow, this was published in 1917, this copy. Here's one that sold for $40. There's one active for $260. There's another one active for $35. that's in better condition. Here's one for 90. All over the map. This is another one I'll probably just end up keeping it because I haven't read it. Here's a first edition of Norman Mailer's The Naked and the Dead, one of the classic novels about World War II. It is damaged. These sell for around 40 bucks, I think, but because of that condition, it might sell for a little bit less. There's a really, really good one that I'm going to save. This was a cool book. I didn't look this one up. The Conquest of Space. Written by Willie Lay. Paintings by Chelsea Bonistel. 1949. It's sci-fi with these artist renditions of travel in outer space. Oh my God. 0 active, 6 solds. The cheapest it has sold for is $130. And those, yeah, one of them sold $130 with no dust jacket, this exact one. So 130 bucks for $1. I didn't even look it up at the time. Oh my God. Here's a copy of Carl Sagan's book, Cosmos. I think maybe it is first edition. Yep, first edition, 1980. It's about what I expected. This is worth around 30 to 35. That's still a great flip, especially because you can send media mail. You can send books in media mail, which is really cheap. So even something like this that weighs a couple pounds, this is gonna cost like $4 to ship. Here's a Marshall McLuhan book. He was a very popular theorist, I think in the 60s. Wrote about the media. This is worth, I think, around 40 bucks. Here's an awesome little paperback copy of Alice in Wonderland. It has these awesome like lithograph illustrations in them. And it's really floppy. This one I'm probably gonna keep for myself because this is another one that I have shamefully not actually read. And I just aesthetically love this book. I think this is worth probably 20 or 30 if I did choose to sell it. Here's another one that I might not be able to part with myself. It's P.G. Woodhouse's Leave It to Smith. And I didn't find any track record of this being really worth that much on eBay, but I didn't see any in this particular binding, and that's just such a cool binding, and I love Woodhouse. Here's another sci-fi book that I could not pass up. Never heard of this author, John Taine, or Eric Temple Bell, I guess that was a pen name. And it's this cool Dover binding. It's 3 novels. This is pretty valuable. I couldn't find this exact book. This is 3 novels, but this first one, The Time Stream, I saw some selling for like 30. This looks like it got a little smashed up. This guy, I set aside a bunch of books and I bought them and I looked over and he had taken all of them and stuffed them into one of my IKEA bags at these weird angles. It really pissed me off. So some of these might have suffered a little bit of condition damage. This is awesome. Look at this. Stir of Echoes by Richard Matheson, who was a pulp horror writer. He did, I don't remember the name of it, but I found a first edition paperback from Matheson, Hell House, whatever his most famous one was, and I sold it for like 30 bucks. Richard Matheson, I think this might be first edition. Yeah, wow. This actually might be worth a lot. Yeah, this is worth like 20, 25. There's one sold that looks like this. This is the kind of thing you can shop with your eye. I have found it's pretty easy if you actually know the genre, if you know horror and sci-fi and pulp crime and adventure novels and westerns, if you have some genre knowledge and you also have a good eye for what collectors like, this hits so many buttons. It's a really famous, popular author, first edition of a well-known work with awesome cover art. If I found this for $3 at a thrift store, I wouldn't bother to look it up. I would just buy it because chances are that is not going to lose you money. Kind of the same deal. This is a book I had never heard of, and it's not actually that valuable, but I still picked it up just based on the cover art because it's visually striking, and there weren't any like this on eBay. So even though this is flipping for like 5 to 10 bucks, I'm going to list this probably at 25, and someone potentially is going to bite on it just because the cover art is so neat. Oh my God, I got so excited for this one. This is staying with me. John Wyndham. He wrote Day of the Triffids, another one that I'm embarrassed to have never actually read, but he's regarded as one of the greatest science fiction writers ever. And this is one that I haven't heard of, and it has that weird Salvador Dali art. I would not possibly consider selling this unless it's worth hundreds of dollars. Yeah, this is worth like 10 to 15. So I am keeping this and probably going to read it. This is a famous book. This is one of the first health food books that got really popular. I think it was written in like the 50s or 60s. And this is a first edition hardcover. The paperbacks don't appear to be worth all that much. But this one is worth between 50 and 75. Yeah, 1965. And this is a first edition. So the deal with all these books, I kind of pieced it together as I went, is these all came from one person. It was a guy who appears to have been a literature professor or some kind of professor. And I asked the guy who was selling them if he got all these at an estate sale. And he said, no, he bought a storage unit. And all of these were in the storage unit and they hadn't been opened since the 70s. So this guy had amazing taste, not just in science fiction, but in fiction and history and theater and dance. He was clearly like a high culture person, which is why the quality is so high. This is not, I actually made a noise when I found this. This is a book, I don't remember where I saw it, but I saw this exact cover and I was all agape at how excellent it was and how much I wanted it. 1966, it's a first edition. I am not parting with this. I am not selling it. Let's see how much it's worth anyway. Here's one that sold for $105. This is a famous book from a famous author. It has iconic cover art and it's in really good condition. This, I 100% am confident is worth that. It's worth $100. But I'm going to keep it and I'm going to think about whether I want to read this one or get a cheaper copy to read and just have this. I was so psyched for this. Philip Jose Farmer's, what is it called? The Wind Whales of Ishmael. And the subtitle is Science Fiction's Incredible Sequel to Moby Dick. Look at the cover art. I was so beside myself when I found this. This is exactly the kind of thing that I want to own. Please focus. This is actually a great author too. Apparently, I've never read him, but he's renowned as being one of the great like psychedelic sci-fi authors. And I've never heard of this. I didn't know there was a sci-fi treatment of Moby Dick. I'm so happy about this. Here's an old vintage copy of the narrative of Arthur Gordon Pym by Edgar Allan Poe. And there's no record of this on eBay. But again, famous author, famous work, and this awesome aesthetic. Here's a book that I just looked up. I never heard of. This is probably worth potentially. Actually, this is interesting. This is a really rare book, I think. And there's only one active that's listed for $250 and no solds. So this is a little bit of speculation. Here's a first edition hardback of the Andromeda strain by Michael Crichton. Michael Crichton, not an author that you would consider particularly collectible or valuable, but first editions of pulp authors like Crichton and like Stephen King, the really popular guys, even the thriller guys like Tom Clancy or James Clavell. Who's the guy that did Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy? First editions of those people's books can be worth a lot. They're collector's items, and this is one of them. This is probably worth around $50. Here's a first edition, I think, or an old copy of Henderson the Rain King by Saul Bellow. I couldn't find any exact comps on this, but probably worth at least 20. Oh, God. I'm going to have to sell it because I've already read it. I don't know if that's true. I might just still keep it because I love it so much. Arthur C. Clarke's Childhood's End with this incredible psychedelic cover art. Here's a copy of Martian Chronicles by Ray Bradbury. It's got that awesome portrait of him. I would say this is probably worth at least 15. Here is an analytical book about Ulysses by James Joyce. And I don't remember how much this is worth, but it was a surprising amount. I think like 30 to 50 bucks. Here's another Ballard, Drowned World and The Wind from Nowhere. So Drowned World is in the same series as The Crystal World. Maybe Wind from Nowhere is as well. Yep, another first edition. Drowned World is actually the one that I really wanted to read. It's like the most well-known of that series. So this is not quite as impressive as the other one. This has sold for like 25, but there are all these actives, anywhere from 45 up to $375. That person's probably on drugs or something. This one I'm gonna just manhandle and read. Probably read it before anything else. Here's a anthology, sci-fi story anthology. These tend not to be worth nearly as much as the actual novels, but this one is pretty rare, and I think this is worth like 20. This is a obscure novel, I think from Eastern Europe. Yeah, Poland. It's a Polish novel that is really very out of print, I think, and this is worth something or other. I don't remember exactly how much. Here is a book of film essays by Eisenstein and also a biography of Eisenstein that I'm going to bundle up together. These are each worth, I think, 15 to 20 each, but I will list that for between 30 and 40. Oh God, here's another Matheson, and it's in this, what is this, Doubleday? Bell, this old pulp binding. First edition, 1964, printed in USA. Yeah, this is worth like 10 bucks. Here's a book of Fellini, I think screenplays. This is interesting. This is a copy of The Wanderer, and it's an old New Directions hardback. So New Directions is a publishing house based in New York that has been publishing like kind of avant-garde poetry and prose works since I think the 40s or 50s. This is really old. It's 1928, so it must be older than that. New Directions books are published by James Laughlin, but it's Houghton Mifflin. I don't know what the story is there, the history, but this is a rare book, and I don't know exactly how much it is worth. I remember the research being confusing. I think this might be worth a lot. I think this might be worth like 100 simply because it's so old and rare. This one was a little bit of a disappointment. Kidnapped by Robert Louis Stevenson. It's this old binding from 1935, and it's this illustrated, I think illustrated classic, and it's messed up. It's not in very good condition. I think this is only worth like 20 bucks or something. But I picked it up because after a while, I had been there like an hour. The guy kept dropping his price, started at $2, then it moved to $1, then it moved to 50 cents per book. And then at the very end, he said, everything is free. He approached me and said, look, I'm going to make you pay for what you have here. And after that, I'm going to give you 5 minutes to grab a cardboard box from over there and just go and grab whatever you want off of these tarps completely for free. Just take as much as you can get. And there were still a bunch left. And I'll show you over here. That's what I got for free. Oh, I do still have a couple books that I paid for to show you. Here's another Fellini that I'm going to lot up with that other Fellini. Here is an old copy of Portrait of the Artist. Oh my God. Here's the good one. I forgot that I teased you about it. This one book is going to pay for everything that I bought today. This is by far the best book that I got. This cost me $1. The Blessing of Pan by Lord Dunsany. Lord Alfred Dunsany was, I don't know if he was the very truly first fantasy writer or the first popular fantasy writer, but he published in like the 1910s or the late 1800s. Let me see if I can find a date here. And he was the big inspiration for Tolkien, 1928. I thought he was older, but he's the forerunner of Tolkien. And he wrote fairy stories and fantasy with a PH. And I was so excited about this. I've never read him. I don't know that I'm even that interested in reading him because I don't tend to like fantasy that much anyway, even contemporary stuff. I can't stay awake reading Tolkien. I'm sorry. I know that's blasphemy, but this is easily worth $100. This is probably worth more like $200. This is a very rare book, and it's a first edition, and it does have some condition problems, but this is not just the find of the day. This is like a find of a lifetime. I don't know that I'm ever going to find a first edition Lord Dunsany book again in my life. Really special. This is a person to know. Here's another first edition another first edition Andromeda strain from Michael Crichton. This one is paperback, probably not worth as much. Here's an old Franny and Zoe from Salinger, not worth that much on its own, but I got another Salinger book that I'm going to lot it up with. Here's an old Ivanhoe by Sir Walter Scott. It's a Signet. These Signet classics I've had great luck flipping, just again based on aesthetics alone. Here is Volume 1 and Volume 2 of A Treasury of Great Science Fiction, which was edited by Anthony Boucher. And I had this one growing up, sitting on a shelf, and I never had volume 2. I'm probably going to sell these. I think this will probably flip for around 40 as a set. Here's another interesting set. Kind of a funny title. Idle Thoughts of an Idle Fellow by Jerome K. Jerome. This one I might actually dip into and read. I was thumbing through this one, which is Second Thoughts of an Idle Fellow. And it was him kind of opining from his bedroom window looking out over Trafalgar Square, impugning everybody below him as being slaves to their jobs. 1898, wow. So this as a set is probably worth, I would say, around 50, if memory serves, but this might be something I hang on to. Oh God, I forgot about this. Check this out. Isaac Asimov. I'm going to guess this is a first edition. I didn't bother to look it up. Asimov's most famous for the Foundation trilogy, or Foundation series, rather, 1953. Yep, this is a first edition. Here's one that sold for $105. It is in better condition. Here's one that sold for $70, $50. This one I am going to let go of. I'm sorry to say I'm not that big of an Isaac Asimov reader, so this will not sting to sell. I'm going to guess based on the condition, that's probably worth around 50. Oh my God, I was so excited for this. This is the complete books of Charles Fort. Charles Fort is considered the father of cryptozoology. He wrote, I think in like the 20s and 30s about hidden animals, secret, not secret, but wrote about all the, Sasquatch and the Loch Ness Monster and all the related creepies and crawlies. I have been really interested in Bigfoot for my entire life. I tend to be a believer. I don't know if that undermines whatever intellectual credibility I've built up over the course of this video, but I always wanted to read Charles Fort, just I guess for like the sake of having said that I had, but also just I'm guessing there's some pretty wild stuff in here. Written in 1919 to 1940. It is 5 different books, including the Book of the Damned, which is what he's most remembered for. This just made my inner 12-year-old smile so broadly again. And this was an incredible find as well. My Printing Experiences by Benjamin Franklin. And this is embossed. It's not metal, but that's painted and it's embossed leather. I don't think it's a first edition, but look at that print, that panel. Copyright 1921. It's the second edition. So, okay, this is from 1922. Really not sure what this is worth. There's one first edition of this that's currently listed for $3,000. There's another one, the 1922 version, which is this one that's active for 30. There are no solds. So I would have anticipated it being worth more than 30, but that's fine. Okay, I just rummaged around and pulled out all the stuff that I specifically want to talk about from the free pile, the stuff that I just kind of grabbed at the end that's not going to be worth quite as much, potentially. But I do want to do a live lookup for some of this because I just grabbed it as I was going. There was a big stack, not a stack, rather kind of a strewing of these old, I think, audio reels. And I know from watching reselling YouTube that some of these tend to be worth a lot. Here's one that's like a self-development, like a self-help thing. No, it's a series of political commentaries about energy policy. I was going to say this guy doesn't strike me as the self-help type. That's a big question mark. No clue if that's worth anything. Palisades Symphony. Oh, Palisades High School. Oh, this is probably from the school that he taught at. Because there were a bunch of yearbooks as well. Palisades High School. This is probably field recordings from a school production. Possibly, hopefully, of nostalgic value for someone. Here's another blank one. Not really seeing any big obvious value here. But who knows? I'll put that up for auction, you know, put 15 bucks shipping on it and just see what happens with it. Hopefully you like old books as much as I do. Here's one that is by J.H. Powell called Bring Out Your Dead. It's a history of, quote, the Great Plague of Yellow Fever in Philadelphia in 1793. I figured this might actually be pretty in demand right now for obvious reasons. It's worth 15 to 20. Here is one that I just want to show off. First edition kind of dog-eared paperback of the K Mutiny, which was what the Humphrey Bogart movie was based on, which is a wonderful movie. This is The Book of Delight and Other Papers by Israel Abrahams. Not something I recognize. Lots of actives, no solds, but all the actives are around 30 or 40, so I might just put this out for like 15, see if someone bites on it. Here's an old history of cinema. Some cool graphics. No record of this one. Here's an old Great Gatsby from the Scribner Library. I did look this one up, and I think it was probably worth like 15. Here's an old children's book, back when children's books were books. It's worth around 15. I wanted to show you this one. So this is probably not worth that much. I remember looking this up before I got it for free. And I want to show it because this is a New Directions paperback that I was talking about, that publishing house that does all the art books. New Directions, books don't work by brand typically in the way that clothing does, but some publishing houses do carry weight behind them. New Directions is one of them. New Directions, they don't make huge printings for the most part, so their stuff tends to be a little less common. It's also pretty in demand, and it has a really specific aesthetic to it. It's always black and white typically, and it has these white backs and this kind of prosaic, kind of bland look to them that's really distinct once you start noticing them. So any New Directions paperback that I find, I look up, both because they publish really excellent books and also because they tend to be better for reselling. Here's a first edition hardback of The Sun Also Rises by Ernest Hemingway. This is part of the Scribner Hemingway line. It has a signature on it, so I don't think this is like a true first edition. I think this is the first edition of this printing of it. Yeah, it was published in 1954. Book was written in 1926. This is worth about 20. Here's a very old book, barely legible, not in very good condition. It's got writing inside. Exercises in Elementary Counterpoint by Percy Gauchis. I think this is like a rhetoric. Oh, it's a music book. Interesting. Old music books can actually be worth a lot, especially sheet music. Sheet music, like antique sheet music or sheet music from well-known musical acts from like the 60s, can be great money. This is probably nothing. This one is worth like 10. I'm probably just going to throw it back. Here's the first edition Nabokov, which is pretty incredible to find for free. And I did look this up. I think it's worth like 20. Here's a great design, old paperback, Last Letters from Stalingrad. Not familiar with this one. Wow, this is a really rare book. I can't find this exact one, but there are other copies that have sold for 40 bucks and up. And there's not that many of them. There's currently 5 actives on eBay. I did all the research on eBay. I do sell seller fulfilled on Amazon, but for older antique books, vintage books, I just do eBay as well. Here's an old copy of Brave New World by Huxley. And I also have, I don't remember the title of it, but the follow-up book to Brave New World as well. I'll probably put it in a lot. This is like not a first edition. I think this is probably worth like 15 or something. And then this is another one that isn't worth all that much, but is something I'm pumped on. Wilkie Collins was a contemporary of Charles Dickens, and this is a really well-known spooky tales book. I definitely recognize it. I don't know that much about it, but I know that this is kind of a beloved genre piece. I thought this was great. Folk tales and fairy stories from India. This binding is just wonderful. I mean, someone is absolutely going to spend $15 on that, even if I can't find any comps. Yep, it's worth about that. About 10 to 15. This one actually I think might be worth something. This is a very famous book. I think it's behavioral psychology. Really pivotal book when it was released. Is it a first edition? Nope. It is a 25th printing from 1966. This is worth 10 to 15. I'll probably sell it. I am a little bit interested in reading it, but I'm less interested than reading all that sci-fi that I got. This one was cool. I know nothing about it. I just know that it's worth 40 bucks. Rare book. Great cover. This is funny. It's always funny to find these old pulp novels from these haughty literary figures that are marketed like adventure stories for boys. This is the 5th printing of it, 1962. So great. I mean, this is another one. If I found this at a Goodwill for $3, I would pick it up just because, I mean, it's got kitsch value and it's Faulkner, it's collectible. All right, this isn't worth that much. There's one that sold for $6, but I don't know. I'll list that for like 10. Someone will grab it. Here's the other Salinger that I got a lot up with Franny and Zoe. There's a bunch more books I didn't show you. I am engulfed in books as I'm looking around. I'm not that overwhelmed because it's such a pleasure to shop these and to handle them and sell them. I do feel like I have some kind of stupid like sentimental caretaker role or facilitator role in connecting people with these books because they're just, a lot of them are so neat and really quick to photograph, quick to list, quicker and easier than clothing. It is going to take up quite a bit of space, but I don't know. It was just like a great opportunity, and those opportunities don't come around that often where you have first pick and no competition on stuff like this. And conservatively, I mean, this is at least $500 in profit. I would not be surprised if I ended up netting over $1,000 for all of this stuff, all said and done. Yeah, of course it scratched an itch. So thanks for watching. I hope this was educational. A lot of this is directly translatable for your own reselling, give you some idea of how to resell used books, which is actually how I started reselling. I was a bookseller before I was a clothing seller. So thanks for watching, and I'm just pleased as could be.